Hey everybody and welcome to Rock Video Rental. We are continuing on with our Halloween marathon, and today we're talking about Psycho from 1960. It is directed by Alfred Hitchcock, and the plot is a Phoenix secretary embezzles $40,000 from her employer's client, goes on the run, and checks into a remote hotel run by a young man under the domination of his mother. I didn't slaughter that horribly.
Well,
Actually,
dude,
yeah,
that
I did.
it was it was horrible, like from the beginning of just like how long is that description? Holy crap.
Really, it wasn't that long. I just screwed it up so many times. The cast for this one, we got Janet Leigh as Marion, Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, Vera Miles as Lila Crane, and John Gavin as Sam Loomis. You notice
Dr.
anything there?
Loomis?
Yeah, that's what Dr. Loomis was named after.
Nice. I thought
Um,
when I heard his name, thought you had said something maybe about it.
yeah, and in case you didn't know, almost everybody knows, but Janet Leigh is Jamie Lee Curtis's mom.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that.
And she was most of the reason why John Carpenter wanted her for Halloween.
Rock.
Yep. So, I've seen this movie quite a few times. I don't know how many times you've seen it.
So, I was having a really difficult time trying to figure that out because I've seen bits and pieces of both this one and the remake. And so now when I was watching this, I was having a really hard time figuring out if I saw all of this one previously or all of the remake. So I'm honestly not entirely sure. This may have been my first complete watch. So,
Rock. Yeah, I'd say I've seen it quite a few times, but I think this might be my third time watching it all the way through. It's one of those movies that I've seen bits and pieces of a lot.
mhm.
I have not seen the remake, the Vince Vaughn one.
Yeah.
I have seen the sequels to this. And before we started this, we kind of talked about it a little bit. They're actually really good.
Yeah, it piqued my curiosity. I knew there was a sequel. I didn't realize there were multiple sequels.
They
So,
rely a little more on the slasher element, but they're still not like gratuitous like a Friday the 13th movie or like something like Pieces or something like that.
mhm.
But yeah, they're a little more than this one. I mean, this is quote unquote like the granddaddy of all the slasher movies. So this and Peeping Tom, which I can't believe came out around the same time.
Hmm.
But yeah, this is one of the movies that people consider one of the greatest movies of all time. Um, just from even from like a an acting standpoint, directing standpoint, just like the idea of the movie and the advertising for it. How I don't know if you ever heard the stories, but Hitchcock like would refuse to let people walk in late to the movie
Hmm. I
because he
didn't.
didn't want people to like see that Janet Leigh dies in it because that's supposed to be like the big shocking part because she's the biggest name in this movie and she dies like a third of the way into it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that was supposed to
got
be like refused to let anybody in. Like he had that in like some contract or something like that with theaters.
interesting. That definitely does not surprise me. That sounds like a Alfred Hitchcock thing to
I
do.
was gonna say he's a pretty eccentric guy. Uh, but yeah, a lot of things this movie does that I don't know, maybe were a little unsettling at the time. Yeah, you got the main character of Marion who is sleeping with a married man,
Yeah, that
which was rather scandalous for the era.
well, married, separated, or something, wasn't it? Or how
Yeah,
was it? Yeah,
because he said that she was in another country or something like that.
yeah. So I mean, still,
Um,
still pretty shocking for that time.
yeah, and for some reason, the first time I watched this, I kind of like overlooked the fact that she stole $40,000 from her work.
Yeah, see, that was the thing is just like I can't remember what. how the remake went, or yeah, how the remake went. So that's a lot of it was surprising to me. So that's why it's kind of making me think that maybe I didn't see this one all the way through. That was the remake. Sometime I'll have
Yeah,
to go
I've
back
heard
and
that.
watch it.
Yeah, I've heard that the remake is like a shot for shot remake of the original one, just not done as well.
Yeah.
I thought that Janet Leigh did a really great job in this movie for the part that she was in. I thought Anthony Perkins was amazing in this movie.
Yeah. Those two really made this movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I forgot that like the detective was such a big part of this movie
Hmm.
from the last time I watched it. And like noticing the cast, I didn't even have him listed in the cast.
You do not matter.
Because usually I get some of my notes and like the info stuff down before I even watch the movie,
Hmm.
and then I go and I watch the movie. Um, yeah, so Martin Balsam plays Detective Arbogast.
Yeah.
There's a name for you, Milton Arbogast.
Yeah, no, he had a bigger role and he did a really good job with it too because of how he bounced back and forth with Norman Bates then,
Hmm.
and that was wound up being important. The when he first showed up and he had his scene with Marion's sister and then Sam Loomis, it was not very, I don't know, memorable.
Hmm.
It was kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I would say awkward, but it wasn't a very strong scene. But I don't think it really was on his part.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. Um, yeah, I mentioned a little bit about Anthony Perkins doing such a great job. I think the thing that was so impressive about him in this movie is that he was able to convey like somewhat kindness and innocence, but also having that edge of this guy's not quite right.
Yeah. Well,
You know
honestly,
what? Hmm?
when I was watching it, I, of course, had seen parts of it, but forgot so much. And so then when he did flip that switch from being like, oh, I'm a nice, normal guy to, hey, you just said the wrong thing and you triggered me.
Yeah.
It was unsettling.
Hmm.
Like it was, I mean, he nailed it. So props to
Yeah,
him.
and I mean it starts off with that kind of stuff where you see like cracks and breaks here in his personality, and then it all boils down to all the craziness at the end. Um, it's like the whole time he's telling everybody about how his mom, um, she's she needs like his help, but she's in the house. She's basically like an invalid, and it's not until Arbogast speaks with like people in the town are like, no, like Norman's mom has been dead for a while, and I helped him pick out what she was gonna be buried in. And she's buried in this plot here, and um, it all comes down to like he's got his mom's corpse in the house,
Yeah.
like dressed up, and like that's really disturbing, especially for 1960. And it is Norman that's doing the killings, but the twist is he's dressing like his mother and speaking in his mother's voice,
Hmm.
which is really just kind of twisted.
Well,
And
it. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, now that we've like watched this and we watched Friday the 13th, it's almost like a role reversal on Friday the 13th, where
Hmm.
it's Mrs. Voorhees speaking in Jason's voice.
Yeah. I guess I never really thought about that.
Yeah, it just kind of dawned on me when I was watching it this time.
Um, yeah, so that was the thing about this movie too, is just like it's crazy because I knew everything that was happening. I just couldn't remember how they portrayed it in the movie.
Hmm.
Um, and so to watch it though, it was so well done, and it was interesting though because it was twist after twist after twist,
Yeah.
but it didn't feel like it was out of control. Because yeah, first of all, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, she's saying If you knew nothing about this, oh, she's staying at a hotel with this weird guy and his mom, and then oh my gosh, like she got killed, kind of maybe a little unexpected. And then they go later on and it's just like Norman Bates's mom is dead. What? Well, there's some woman there. So you're thinking, okay, this is the woman, this is the killer. Who is this woman?
Yeah.
But then they do the other twist where it's just like no, she's dead. And the next twist is Norman Bates is pretending to be his mom or believes
Hmm.
he's his mom. And so if you sit down and you list all the things, it's kind of like, okay, that's a little excessive, but it was done so well.
Yeah, it's one of those where you think you know the answer, and then like it gives you something else, and then gives you something else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the only thing I have an issue with is at the end where they like have all that explaining of what went on at the end,
Yeah.
where they could have really cut that out. And I don't know, maybe people in 1960s couldn't piece that together, but like now it's you know, with what we know about mental health and things like that and disorders and all that kind of stuff, like you kind of understand more of it now. But maybe back in 1960 it was hard for people to wrap their head around.
I have to believe that you're right about that because just the things that we do recognize were uncommon, like openly talking about an affair and making it look casual and acceptable for
Hmm.
that time period, and then having the some of the shock and awe scenes of the corpse, and then having a man pretending to be a woman and things like that. The other one that I feel I could be wrong, so maybe you know more about this, that I feel was kind of a shock and awe moment was when they showed Marion Crane's corpse and dead stare into the camera,
Yeah.
because that was very unsettling and it was very drawn out. And of course, I feel like I say this every week with these older movies that we're doing this month, but I don't know everything that was done during that time, but I know that was not common if it was done by anyone else during that time.
Oh yeah. And the whole shower scene itself was such a disturbing. Even now, like it's very unnerving because it's incredibly realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you see her like fighting back, and then you see like her body go limp and like all the blood going down the drain.
Yeah.
Where this movie has more blood in it than Halloween does,
Mm-hmm. I didn't think about that.
because there's really not any blood at all on Halloween. Um, but yeah, just the movie's a little bit slower, but I feel like there's constantly something going on, and there's things like keeping your interest, and you're trying to like figure out what the deal is with everybody and how
Mm-hmm.
everything's gonna play out, where it's not boring. And that's, that's kind of the same thing with Halloween as well. That it's a slower movie compared to the movies that it influenced,
Yeah.
and it's not nonstop gore and action at one after another, where it takes time to build characters and flesh out a story and create suspense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I feel like this movie really like hit a home run, is building up the suspense like that, getting you to know Norman a little bit, but still being intrigued by what you don't know about him.
Yeah. It's very interesting to think about because I felt that too a little bit, like, oh man, this part's dragging out a little bit. But then I also chalk it up a little bit to a different time era. But then once the movie was done, I was just like, man, you know what? Honestly, that was not that long. I didn't
Yeah.
feel like anything was too much. The one part that really did it for me was honestly when Norman Bates's character was quote unquote Norman Bates and he supposedly found the body and was cleaning it up. And I was just like, man, they are really drawing this out. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're going through everything that he's doing and everything. And once it was done, I was kind of like, oh well, like it felt long, but it was kind of important to show everything that he did. Also, the aspect that the money was not found and it was not a factor. And it also added to the creepy factor
Yeah.
where he was doing it and it was relatively kind of normal.
Yeah, and he didn't even care about the money. The
Yeah.
money wasn't part of it, they said.
Hmm. I wonder. I mean, I don't have a preference, but he never found the money, so I wonder what it would have maybe been like if he found the money.
Yeah.
Not that it's important, but it is kind of one of those things where, um, the fact that he didn't find it wasn't it basically became a non-factor. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. I I kind of like that being more gray,
Hmm.
where it's just like it just adds to Norman as a murderer because none of it was about money or any kind of capital gain.
Yeah,
It was just him and his uh,
it
mental
wasn't.
issues. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even for sport or entertainment or drive. It was kind of survival,
Hmm.
because of how they explained it at the end with his mom. But yeah, just very, very interesting. So,
Yeah, normally when we do reviews, we talk about things that we thought worked well, things that we thought were great, and things we didn't that we thought were maybe not as good. I can't really think of anything that was bad in this.
neither could I. I mean, that's where I was kind of saying maybe some things could have been trimmed down a little bit. But honestly, I don't think that was necessary, so I wouldn't really put it as a negative.
The title screen was a little boring, but it was 1960.
The
So
music kind of made it a little bit more entertaining. It was
yeah,
the music was really good.
yeah, I was gonna say the music is one of the great things about this movie. It probably the most um recognizable horror themes of all time. I
Hmm.
would say like this, Halloween, and then the song from The Exorcist
Oh yeah. Yep.
are probably like the three most recognizable horror themes of all time. And dude, another thing too, now that we watch this, go back and watch Friday the 13th because they like completely ripped off Psycho with the music, with like the stringed instruments,
That's funny. Yeah.
which I never noticed until I watched a video one time where someone was talking about it, and I recently watched the original Friday the 13th, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like they did totally like rip off Psycho. Yeah, it was enough different, but some pretty similar sounding things in that soundtrack
Yeah. Well,
and
what
that
was it?
score.
Roughly 20 years later, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
It's not like they came out with a movie the next year with the same soundtrack.
Right. Which a lot of movies did, ripping off Halloween's theme,
Hmm.
uh, which I would say is much more unique than this one.
Yeah.
But that's maybe just because this one's been aped so many times. Favorite scenes that you had?
Well, the most classic is the shower scene, no doubt.
Hmm.
Um, Another one that always stands out that I know I've seen multiple times is when Arbogast gets killed.
Oh, when he falls down the stairs.
Yeah, that part, I mean, again, product of its time and everything, but that I feel like out of everything filmed for this movie, that was the least impressive part.
Yeah, that was a little ridiculous.
So,
He's just
because
kind of like staggering backwards and flailing his hands about, and he's like, "Ah!"
yeah, he goes down an entire flight of stairs and stays
on his feet.
upright.
Yeah, well, while Norman's stabbing him.
Yeah.
Uh, it's about as ridiculous as I just watched Friday the 13th Part 4,
Hmm.
and there's a part where that guy's in the basement and the girl gets away and Jason like pins the guy up against the wall and is like stabbing him, and the guy's like, "Ah, he's killing me."
I have enough time to put dialogue in while I'm being stabbed
Right.
repeatedly.
He's like, "Go, Trish, get out of here." And he's like, "Ah, he's killing me." Which also makes me think of Austin Powers and Will Ferrell.
Mm.
I'm very badly burnt. But
Well, I actually something just came to mind and I don't really want to change gears, but I don't want to forget about it. I don't think I would put this as a part that was bad, but it stood out to me in a weird way was the beginning when um Janet's character Marion was having that conversation with uh, the guy who was buying the house.
mm-hmm.
It was I didn't remember any of that,
Yeah, me either.
and it was weird. Like I
Yeah, to say the least, because he's like hitting on her and he's like trying to brag about how much money he's got. And then he's saying how he's buying happiness,
yeah.
buying away sadness, I think is how he put it.
Oh, yes, that's it. But also, I mean, it helped I think it helped contribute to the mindset because Marion was the main character and was the one you were supposed to be siding with, but here she is having an affair and then she steals $40,000. And
Right.
so for things that are uncommon in the 1960s, I feel like Hitchcock was trying to make us sympathize more with her,
Mm-hmm.
and that was part of what that scene was. I could be wrong, but that's how it came across to me. But yeah, that was a scene not standing out. It was like I said, it wasn't really a bad way, but it was just one of those things that I didn't remember from before, and it was, I think, purposely done to be unsettling, where you just did not like that character, and it made you side more with Marion because essentially, if that character wasn't there and she just randomly stole the $40,000 from her boss,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you would think differently of her character.
Yeah, I agree with that. Seeing that he was kind of a blowhard and kind of creepy,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of adds to it a little bit.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of Sam Loomis. I thought he was kind of a Chad. But maybe that was just the time. But seemed a little full of himself, and I don't know.
Honestly, it kind of makes me think of some of the characters that you have in the later Slash movies,
Yeah,
where it's just like a jock and he's kind of full of himself, and then
yeah,
he kind of redeems himself because he saves the day, but he's not your favorite character.
yeah. That's true.
But I'll tell you one character that I didn't really care for. I mean, like he did his part that he needed to, but it was just kind of funny how they handled things. But the Sheriff Chambers
Hmm.
is just like, whatever, you know, too late. Don't worry about it. Get over it. I don't want to do my job. I thought he was kind of funny that way.
Yeah, kind of a. It was like a guy that you needed to be there, but he was just not a very good character. I don't know how to explain it. He was a character that was necessary, but at the same time wasn't.
Yeah. Well, it's
Didn't
just
bring
kind of,
anything to the movie.
yeah, like at some certain point, it's just like, okay, you have a detective that's gone missing. Say what you want. Okay, who cares? But then you have multiple reports that there is a woman living with Norman Bates who is a hermit.
Hmm.
Like, at what point do you not go investigate?
Right. Exactly. He's like, "Ah, I got to get back to my coffee." But um, yeah. Anything else to share? You want to get into trivia? I've got a little bit for this movie.
Yeah, let's do trivia.
There was a lot for it, but I kind of whittled it down. So, um, the director, Alfred Hitchcock, was so pleased with the score that was written by Bernard Herrmann that he doubled the composer's salary to $34,000. Hitchcock later said that 33% of the effect of Psycho was due to his music.
I can agree with that.
Oh, yeah. So, Alfred Hitchcock originally envisioned the shower sequence as completely silent, but Herman went ahead and scored it anyway, and upon hearing it, Hitchcock immediately changed his mind.
Nice.
So when the cast and crew began to work on the first day, they had to raise their right hands and promise not to divulge one word of the story. Hitchcock also withheld the ending part of the script from his cast until he needed to shoot it.
Smart idea.
Yeah, I also heard that, I don't have this in my trivia, but I heard it somewhere that uh, Hitchcock bought the rights because it was originally a book. He bought the rights to it under an alias for
Hmm.
like, I don't know, hardly any money. It was probably a lot at the time. It was like a couple $1,000s. And then he went around and bought like all the copies of the books he could find so nobody else could see it.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's definitely Hitchcock. So after the movie's release, Hitchcock received an angry letter from a father of a girl who refused to have a bath after seeing the movie Diabolique in '55, and now she refused to take a shower after seeing the movie. Hitchcock sent a note back simply saying, "Send her to the dry cleaners."
That is an awesome story.
Yeah, that is pretty great. So Anthony Perkins and Janet Leigh said that they did not mind being stereotyped forever because of their participation in the movie. They said in interviews that they would rather be stereotyped and remembered forever for this classic movie and than not be remembered at all,
Hmm.
which is a good point. So Alfred Hitchcock wanted to make the movie so much that he deferred his standard uh, $250,000 salary in lieu of 60% of the movie's gross. Paramount Pictures, believing that this movie would do poorly in the box office, agreed. Um, his personal earnings from this movie exceeded $15 million, which,
Gosh,
adjusted for inflation, would be $131 million.
dude, that's insane.
Yeah,
Kudos to him. Dang,
right. The last thing I got is this movie had an $806,000 budget, and it made $32 million.
man.
So yeah, time for grades.
Oh
I
wait,
pulled
real
from.
quick. I was looking it up. Did Anthony Perkins get any awards for Bateman?
That is a good question.
I was looking and I couldn't. I saw something about uh a Best Actor award in 1961, which I would imagine was for this movie, but I don't know.
Hmm.
From the Cannes Film Festival,
Okay.
if that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, it's Canes, I believe.
So I don't know how. I mean, I feel like there should be more awards around this movie, but especially his performance, that was uh really good. And also, real quick before we go into grades, I just stumbled across that he apparently was in a movie with Audrey Hepburn. So
Oh, really?
yeah, crazy.
So I looked it up. So awards. I'm just gonna go with Academy Awards because really, what that's like all that matters.
Yeah.
So uh, Hitchcock was nominated for Best Director. Janet Leigh was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Um, Joseph Hurley, Robert Clatworthy, and George Milo were nominated for Best Art Direction in a Black and White movie,
Hmm.
and John Russell was nominated for Best Cinematography in a Black and White movie. So,
Wow.
no, Anthony Perkins got nothing for playing Norman Bates.
Dang.
Yeah, and I thought he was better than Janet Leigh. Maybe
Yeah.
just because she was a bigger name at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But grades?
Grades.
All right. So IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, what do you think those are?
Oh man. IMDb. Let's go with 7.7.
8.5.
Holy crap, dude.
Yeah. I told you at the beginning of this, it's considered one of the greatest movies of all time.
True. So that was my bad on that. For the critic, let's go 90%.
96.
Oh dang. Audience, because they're a bunch of idiots, let's do 88%.
95.
Oh wow.
That might be the best trifecta that we've had on the show.
I think you might be right.
The only thing I could think that would rival it would be Empire Strikes Back.
Hmm. Yeah,
Might be
that
the most
is.
critically acclaimed movie we've ever covered. Uh, but yeah, our grades. I'll go first. Um, I always enjoy this movie. It's one of those I have to be kind of in the mood to watch because I don't know, black and white movies sometimes don't keep your interest as much as color movies. I do enjoy them, and I have no problem watching black and white movies. I grew up watching like the old Universal monster movies and like Three Stooges and things like that. So, um, and I appreciate everything this movie did, and it basically helped create the slasher genre, which is like my favorite genre. So I have to give it some props. The acting is really great. The story's great. The directing is great. The cinematography is awesome. The music's like echoic, I guess, not iconic. But yeah, I couldn't give it anything less than a 5 out of 5. It's just a really great movie and one of those I feel like everyone should watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm gonna echo basically everything that you said. 5 out of 5. I am more critical of movies that have such high recognition like this, just from a standpoint of I don't want to get sucked into like hype, I guess you might say.
Mm-hmm.
But this one totally deserves it. There was nothing that we could really take away from it where it was bad. Sure, there some things that worked better than other parts, absolutely. But man, one of those things I think maybe a conversation we might have maybe like a bonus episode sometime is out of all the movies we've watched, what could we potentially label as a perfect movie?
Yeah.
This would
Well, I mean,
definitely be in
Troll
that.
too, right?
Miami Connection.
Yeah.
Um,
If you're asking me what movie should I watch, it's gonna be Psycho and Troll 2.
if you could only take two movies on a deserted island. Oh man. Yeah, so this just man, I really do feel like this may have been my first time watching all the way through because if I forgot that much of this movie from the first time I watched it, I feel sorry that I forgot that much. So, just fantastic top to bottom. Honestly, I could see myself watching this on a repetitive basis, like maybe once a year or something. So,
Rock. Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's definitely one of those movies that I feel like everyone should see, especially like if you're like a fan of horror movies or just even like a fan of like film history because it definitely has its place in film history
mhm. Don't
because of
forget
the things.
the toilet flush.
Yeah. uh,
You know the story about that, right? Like it's the first movie to show a toilet flush.
oh yeah, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah. I was waiting for that. I was just like, oh man, I could not for the life of me remember why they showed a toilet flush. And then she ripped that thing and flushed it down the toilet. I was like, oh yeah, there it is.
Oh gosh. And then it became a punchline in Married with Children, the toilet flush. Oh. But yeah, next time we're going to be talking about a movie that I've never seen, but I've heard a lot of people talk about. And it's one I've always wanted to watch, and that is the movie Eyes Without a Face, which is also from 1960. It came out, I believe, a few months after this. So we have been going in chronological order if you didn't know.
Gasp.
So until then, as always, be kind and rewind.